Once upon a time, in a country far, far away, a little boy named Sherif lived with his father in the woods just outside a town called Nakanga. Sherif's father worked as a hunter, and he was known throughout the whole town. But he was not the only famous hunter in town. Another child, named Listowell, lived with his father in the far end of the same forest. His father was also a hunter, and a good one too. Having two talented families of hunters in one forest had been a conflict for generations, because sharing a forest also meant that they had to share the different animals. The competition of possessing the title as the best hunter had been going on for centuries, and all the newborns in the two different families were raised with the expectations of hating one another. Therefore, Listowell and Sherif were forced to walk in their father's footsteps and hate each other. One day, Sherif went deep into the woods to play by the river, and across that river sat another boy building a dam. It was Listowell. They both glanced at each other, wondering whether or not they should say hi. The first one to talk was Sherif. "What are you doing by the river?" Sherif asked. "Nothing, if you ask me. I'm not supposed to talk to you," Listowell replied. "Yeah, I know, I'm sorry," Sherif said. Listowell looked down at his dam and then said, "But if you really want to know, I'm building a dam, and I guess it would go a lot faster if you'd help me." "Of course I will. Let's get started," Sherif replied with a big smile. Every day, the two boys met at the river, playing and laughing all day long. It didn't take long for them to become best friends, and they enjoyed every minute spent by the river. But as a new friendship bloomed, the hatred and competition between the two fathers grew more and more. This was due to a recent group of jaguars which had come in from the west. Jaguars are very rare and even more dangerous. The two hunters spent all day long trying to catch these animals to protect the town, but none of them were able to capture or even kill them. This made the hunters very angry. But angry cannot be used as a word describing the two hunters' moods when they found out that their sons had been playing together by the riverside. A rage boiled through both of the fathers, and they immediately started yelling at the two boys. Sherif and Listowell were torn apart, and they were forbidden to ever play together again. Days went by, and Sherif and Listowell were still not allowed to see each other. They both missed playing by the river, and none of them really understood the hatred between the families. But they didn't dare to ask their fathers why. Both fathers were still hunting the jaguars, yet without any luck. But their luck was about to turn. One day, each of the fathers went out hunting for the jaguars, and both of them brought their sons along. Sherif and his father were searching for the jaguars packed near the city borders. They gazed over the terrain, and Sherif spotted a sudden movement behind some bushes. "Father, I saw something moving over by those bushes. Could it be the jaguars?" Sherif asked silently. "Nicely spotted. It could very well be them. Let's go find out," his father replied. Sherif and his father moved closer and closer towards their target, but when they reached the bushes, they only found Listowell and his father, also in search for the jaguars. Listowell's father immediately started yelling, "This is our spot, you filthy thieves! Get out of the way, or I will make you move." Sherif's father responded just as harshly, and they just got into another argument. While the fathers argued, the two boys glanced at each other, smiling cunningly, and then they sneaked away. Soon after, they found a pack of jaguars along the riverside. The dangerous animals started surrounding the two boys. Sherif and Listowell were trapped. Listowell whispered silently to Sherif, "No sudden movements, just stand still and they won't harm us, I hope." Standing there with their lives hanging by a thread, the two boys were terrified, and they both wished their fathers would have noticed they were gone. At that same moment, wishing for their father's appearance, the two boys heard a gunshot, and the fathers came out of some bushes. Sherif's father lured the jaguars away from the children by waving with some meat. Meanwhile, Listowell's father fired a couple of gunshots, killing the jaguars. By working together, they had killed the animals, saved their children, and saved the town. The two fathers looked at each other, smiling while shaking hands. After that day, a cooperation between the two families of hunters had started, because the fathers had finally learned that it was easier achieving your goals by working together instead of competing. Sherif and Listowell lived happily ever after in a forest of peace and partnership.